Hi everyone, my name is Aaron Herrera, and today I'm going to be giving my process speech on what happens to your biopsy after surgery. Have you or a family member or anyone you've known have had a biopsy procedure done? Have you ever wondered what the purpose of a biopsy procedure is? And have you ever wondered what happens to that biopsy behind the scenes? Today I'm going to explain to you what goes on in the biopsy process, how it's processed, and what happens down the line. Um, First of all, the specimen is collected, usually at the surgery site, and anytime you have surgery, anything that they think is abnormal, the surgeon, they'll take it and they place it in a fixative. And the fixative is basically a liquid chemical that preserves your biopsy specimen, and it's going to prevent autolysis, which is the decaying of healthy cells. And from there it goes into the laboratory before it even makes its way to me or to the PAs or any grossing assistant. It first gets an LIS number, and that LIS number is going to follow that patient throughout the whole biopsy process, and it's just an identification number so that you will no longer be identified by your name, your social security number, date of birth, any of that personal information. You're going to be strictly identified by that LIS number. And the next step after that is grossing, where the specimen is then brought into a grossing station. And grossing is basically a measurement. It's basically more of a description for the doctor before the doctor gets a hold of your biopsy specimen. And it's being measured for size, clarity, color, any abnormalities that the grosser, PA, or intern sees. He or she is going to note that. And from that point on, we get it, and I'm what's known as a histologist. And basically, we're turning your biopsy into a glass slide, and it first goes through a whole process of dehydration. So it's ran through different alcohols and waxes, and the whole purpose of that is so that your biopsy will survive the cutting process, and the staining process. So after it's been manually or mechanically processed through those chemicals, we get a hold of that biopsy, embed it, and turn the cassette into a block. And the block is then mounted on a slide, and we then start the last stage of the biopsy process, which is to stain the slides with different chemicals. And what you're doing is you're staining these the cells from biopsy so that the doctor can view them under the microscope. Because a little bit of backtrack here, your cells are clear. Despite what you may see in books, your cells have no color. The color that you're seeing in books comes from different chemical dyes, different stains that a histologist or a doctor has stained those cells so that they're more visible and they can be seen under a microscope. So once we go through the last stage of that process, which is staining, we then render it to the pathologist. And from there comes this question of, well, what happens after my biopsy is processed and it's given to the pathologist? A little bit of backtrack again. A pathologist is a doctor who basically screens everything from the body. They work behind the scenes too. They're giving you your diagnosis for a lot of different things. And if your biopsy specimen turns out to be cancerous, or if you have some type of microorganisms, then your biopsy is going to go back to the lab for further testing. And this testing includes staining your biopsy with different antibodies. Those are usually to detect different types of cancers, different microorganisms. Like I said, a lot of any abnormalities you may have can go back for further testing, or they may be sent out for genetic testing. You may have like what's known as a genetic cancer. It basically they do a whole lot of different things to your biopsy. They do a lot of things with probes, analyze sequencing, whatever have you. Your pathologist that's viewing your biopsy slide is going to find a proper solution for more information of what's wrong with you, if you have anything wrong with your biopsy. And another transitional question that I get is, what kind of skills does it do to do this work or to work in this field? And the first skill I would say is good math skills. You know, when you work in a lab, you definitely want to have good math skills because you're working with lots of different chemicals. And the next skill I would suggest you have is being able to multitask, because a biopsy lab gets very busy, you know, especially in a hospital, lots of sick patients that are waiting on their diagnosis. It's being able to multitask and being able to take on more than one thing at a time is definitely a trait you need to have. And the final skill I would suggest is having a passion to help others. I like helping others. You know, even if you're working behind the scenes and you don't really get to see that patient, you're still contributing a huge part to patient care, whether you see it or not. Everything that you do is going towards quality and clarity, and it's about patient care at the end of the day. So having a passion and also the skill to work with your patients and doctors, you know, having that is very rewarding at the end of the day. So in conclusion, thank you for taking the time for me to explain what happens to your biopsy. I hope I have taught or educated you all in somewhat of the pathology process. And for more information about this career, you can get further information from the National Institute of Histotechnology, and that's www.nsh.org. Thank you.